10-4 drivers, welcome to the Channel 19 Experience Trucker Podcast. This is where the real stories roll, straight from the blacktop. From first jobs to last hauls, the laughs that kept us going and the lessons that left a mark. It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Paper breaker 19, can I get a radio check? Pretty quiet out here on Channel 19. Well, there's a plain white rapper taking pictures at the state line. Hit the jake brake quick, we ain't paying no fines. The driver swing into the interstate, body shop south at exit 5. Building trucking ain't the same as it was. We're the last of our kind.
Welcome to the Channel 19 Experience Trucker Podcast. I'm your host, Tony, and welcome to the show. It's episode number 11. I'm recording and editing this episode from Birmingham, England. I've got 2 interviews this week that I can't wait to share. I'm going to keep my parts really short this week because we've got 2 interviews, and I'm preparing to explore the UK trucking experience that I plan to share with all of you on the next episode. I've also been trying to set up the chapters properly in the episode so you can easily navigate forward, backwards, parts that you missed, parts that you want to skip through. So check those out when you get a chance. I've got my water boiling for my cup of tea. Let's get this rig rolling.
Trucking for Kids is a truck show over in Bakersfield, California. It's going on May 3rd and 4th, and it's presented by 10-4 Magazine and the North American Transportation Association. This year, it's the 44th time they've held this event. They've got truck drags on Sunday. They've got a show and shine, a live auction and raffle, burnout contest, jet dragsters. They'll be lighting up those trucks in the lot on Saturday, and they've got a kids zone. So if you're in the area, make sure to go check that out in Bakersfield, California, Saturday, May 3rd and Sunday, May 4th. You can find more information at truckinforkids.org.
This week on the podcast, in the pre-trip, we're going to talk a little bit about the CVSA Blitz Week, some ATRI or ATRI research that's going on in the trucking industry, and Little Brother Trucker went full plastic truck mafia this past week. So we'll preview those stories to come. In the money line, we're going to talk about my trip over to the United Kingdom and my first evening here before these thoughts get lost amongst all the memories and discussions and adventures to come. And this week, like I said, we've got 2 guests. First up, we've got Mike Ritzema from Superior Trucking Payroll Service, and we'll talk mostly about the infamous 1099s. He's an amazing wealth of knowledge, and I'm really thankful that I got the chance to meet him and partner up with him here as we share some information about payroll, do's, don'ts, a variety of topics that he'll be able to share his long history of experience with all of us. And then after that, we've got Moira Elliott, no relation. She's been in trucking for 30 years and was really such a joy to talk to. I can't wait to share our discussion with you all. On the post-trip, if you've been following my social media, I've kicked off the United States Guide to Trucking Etiquette project. And if you're not following on social media, what are you waiting for? We're starting off this project by tackling a prickly issue in trucking, which is fuel island etiquette. So come add your thoughts to the discussion on the various social medias or email me directly, inbox at channel19experience.com, or there's a contact us form there on the website. I'll be checking out some fuel islands here in the UK and see how they're managing things. Maybe they've got some ideas we can steal. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll jump into that pre-trip. If you're not driving, it's a great time to like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends.
Trans Carolina Permits is based out of North Carolina. They've been in business since 1977, and they've got a team with a ton of experience in all of our favorite part of trucking, which of course is the government. They provide a portfolio of services for the trucking industry, various applications and permits, FMCSA Authority 2290s, IRP tags, DMV tags, trailer plates, along with state filings for your business. Not to mention they have a compliance program. They'll help you with clearinghouse setup and queries, IFTA, and mileage reporting. So your state-by-state mileage, your fuel purchase tracking, and get that wrapped up into a nice little bundle for quarterly filings. They're a one-stop shop for your trucking needs. You can find them on Facebook and LinkedIn, or check out their website, transcarolinapermits.com, or give them a call at 1-800-899-4870.
Grab that safety vest and let's get into our pre-trip. First up, talking about the CVSA Blitz Week coming up here May 13th through the 15th. So just about 2 weeks away from that extravaganza kicking off. Some states have already got the party started. We've seen some mini blitzes in various states. I think Pennsylvania was one. I think Virginia had one. The weather's getting nicer, so that means a couple different things. First, it means more orange barrels, some Snyder pellets on the freeways, and of course, our friends at the CVSA making sure that everybody is wired tight out there on the highways. A couple areas of focus for this year's Blitz Week, and I still think we should consider planning a trucker cruise during Blitz Week every year, so we could just skip the whole fun, head straight to somewhere in the Caribbean or something. Sounds like a nice alternative. But anyway, this year they're focusing on a couple of areas. One of them is record of duty status, which with ELDs should be relatively easy to keep your record of duty status on the up and up. But if you have a little extracurricular work going on, maybe your personal conveyance, might be a time to check that out. Make sure there's no warnings or alerts or notifications on your ELD. Talk to your safety director, get that stuff straightened out before you go rolling into a pre-trip with low-hanging fruit for them to grab and make your day less fun than you anticipated. On the vehicle side, they're focusing on tires, tire tread depth, proper inflation, tire damage, leaks, tread separation on those recaps, cuts, bulges, sidewall damage, things like that. So get out there. This is the pre-trip inspection, so this is the appropriate time. Get in there, look around, grab your flashlight if it's dark, make sure that your tires are in good shape, because that's one of the areas they're going to focus on. Topic number 2, ATRI, or also known as the American Trucking Research Institute, announced last week what their areas of focus are going to be from a research standpoint this coming year. And so if you're not familiar with that organization, you probably see a lot of their information and the results of their research published in the various trucking magazines and other outlets. You'll see a bunch of their data in Fleet Owner Magazine, CCJ, Transport Topics, right? It's really a great industry resource that we have. A lot of their research gets used as far as deciding things in legislation. They also do a lot of research into drivers' opinions on things. They do a bunch of polls every year, understanding what concerns drivers have. Also research with the various carriers to understand cost per mile, different market segments, rates, things like that. And those are things they consistently do year after year and provide a long body of work and data for us to understand how things are evolving in trucking. Also, they take more of the moment topics and decide what research is most important this year to tackle in addition to those usual topics that they take on. This year, 5 topics that they plan to put a special emphasis in their research. And so I'll run through those quick. A couple of them are more interesting than others to me, and maybe to you. That'll be our poll question this week. Which ones of these 5 topics is you're most interested to hear what they have to say? First topic, rising insurance costs and self-insurance motivations. They've already done a bunch of research on this in past years. Interested to see if they find anything new. A lot of their previous research had been around what impact and, let's say, policy choices the rising cost of insurance was having. Were you lowering deductibles, decreasing coverage, raising your deductibles, things like that to combat rising insurance costs? Second topic, capitalizing on telematics data. There's a ton of data that telematics gather, and they've been studying this data for years. Like I mentioned before, I spent 10 years of my career working with Trimble. I started off and spent most of that time working with telematics. It was PeopleNet when I joined, and then, of course, got bought by Trimble not too long after I had joined PeopleNet. So I've spent quite a bit of time in the telematics space pre-mandate. Most of my career was spent pre-mandate and then a little bit after the mandate. But anyway, these devices kick out a ton of data, but not everybody's using the data the same. Not everybody has data scientists like some of the big fleets do and can really get the most out of this data. So what ATRI is looking at is studying how the best fleets use that data, and looks like they're going to build out recommendations that hopefully are a little more scalable for folks to get the most use out of their telematics data. Third one on the list, efficacy of entry-level driver training on safety outcomes. So in 2022, the ELDT, entry-level driver training mandate, came in, which required that new truck drivers complete a structured program before being able to take the CDL skills test. But there are concerns that persist about the effectiveness of this training. Is it actually making the industry safer? Did it produce the desired intended results, or is it just more paper shuffling? Is it really making a difference? Is what they're really trying to understand. They're going to study data, safety data, crash data, accident data, things like that. Telematics data will come into it to understand maybe more specifically what was the impact of having that mandate and making that a requirement for new drivers in the trucking industry. I mean, we've talked to a bunch of people who went through the truck driver training school process. Some of us did, some of us didn't. And even the newer ones have had to go through the ELDT. And whether you hear it firsthand from people like interviews on this podcast, or even you read some of the social media posts from new drivers, there's definitely a gap between the knowledge that you have coming through some of these training programs and then what it takes to be a good truck driver in reality, out in the real world. So it'll be interesting to see what their data says. Fourth topic that they plan to focus on, safety impacts of in-cab monitoring. ATRI has done a ton of research around in-cab monitoring, various systems. Some of it's been focused on driver's perspective of these systems. Others have been on the kind of the data collected after installing some of these systems. So they're going to do even more research. They're collecting a bunch of in-cab data confidentially to understand the relationship between which systems people have, which ones they're using, and how does it impact the safety outcomes of those various drivers and fleets. Also, what they plan to produce is kind of a recommendations guide that carriers and drivers can use to manage the data and improve their safety outcomes. And then finally, and I thought, this week by coming to the UK that I would learn a bunch of new trucking words. But in their paper, their release, this fifth topic, I learned a new trucking term. Maybe I should have known it already, but I'd never heard it before, and it's called cabotage. It sounds like something out of a cartoon growing up with maybe Foghorn Leghorn or something. Cabotage is the restriction placed on foreign companies from moving goods between points in another country. And of course, this is a hot topic right now. For example, an example of cabotage would be something like, okay, if you're a Mexican or Canadian driver, you come into the United States, and to deliver product from your country into the United States, and there are regulations around what you can do while you're in the country before you have to basically go home and touch up to bring another load back into the United States. So let's say you come from Mexico, you deliver to Newark, New Jersey, and your goal needs to be to leave the United States and go back to Mexico and start the process over again. You can't just wander around in the United States endlessly. The regulations that we have, they're designed to restrict that. But as we all know, that doesn't necessarily happen in the way that was intended by the regulation. And let's face it, our regulation is kind of loose wording, which we tend to do here, which is not really clarify what we mean and leave it wide open and subject to some level of interpretation. So they're going to research that further and understand what the impacts are. How prevalent is it, and what the impacts are to rates, to employment here for American truckers. So like I said, we're going to throw out a poll question, see which ones you have the most interest in, and then we can await the research here later this summer. They'll produce their results, and then we can see what we learned. Last topic here in the pre-trip, and this is more of a teaser than the full story, but little brother trucker, my little brother, mile marker Mike, he decided to take a walk on the wild side this last week. This week, I plan to interview him, get the full and final version. Hopefully it's the final version. The saga's put to rest. Well, I say decided. Little brother trucker didn't really decide much of anything. His engine decided for him that he was going to join the plastic truck mafia. He had a breakdown. He ended up in a rider truck, a rental rig to help haul a couple loads here while his truck got fixed, and they sorted out his engine problems. So he took a little trip to the wild side, no ELD, back to paper logs, governed at 68 miles an hour, found himself plugging up the left-hand lane when he first realized how little pulling power he actually had under load. I think that was probably in Wyoming. So he got the whole experience, a totally different life from driving his rig. It's always interesting between sensors and electronics and engines. Sometimes the path doesn't always go the way you think it's going to go. Sometimes it doesn't go the way the mechanics think it's going to go. So we'll get into that more of that next week in detail after we get a chance to bring Mike on the show. That's your pre-trip for this week. Get that seat adjusted. Let's push the buttons in and get this rig rolling. We've got work to do.
At the Mid-America Truck Show, I had the fortune to meet up with Mike Barber, founder of Truckers Wealth. Both of us have a passion for understanding the uniqueness of truckers and sharing our knowledge wherever we can. Mike is a seasoned financial professional. He has over 20 years of dedicated experience serving the trucking industry. Truckers Wealth has created a specialized financial hub where truckers can receive expert advice and tailored solutions to build wealth, minimize taxes, and secure lifetime income for themselves and their families. Truckers Wealth provides personal strategies to help you achieve financial freedom on your terms. Check out his website, truckers-wealth.com, and look forward to seeing him on the program here soon.
It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's drop down to line 3 here and knock out the money line this week. So just one topic. I'm going to talk about my initial thoughts getting over to the UK. So getting over here was great. Nice, easy trip. Single flight, Phoenix to London, about, 11, 12 hours in the plane. I was optimistic going into the flight. There were a lot of open seats. Looked like I might have a whole row to myself, get a nice nap in, sit comfortably. And then all of a sudden the plane started filling up and we were jammed in there like sardines. So a little bit tighter than I was hoping for, but that's the way it goes. Nice couple sitting next to me, a mother and daughter who visited Phoenix. They were from England and got to chat with them a little bit on the way over. And I took a car ride up from London to Birmingham, and being an American, like getting off one public transport and then going and navigating train stations and transfers and things like that, just it seems like a lot. And people from other countries probably would laugh, but it just felt good to get in the car, have a little moment to yourself after 15, 16 hours with the air quotes public. So I took my car ride up to Birmingham, got to see the countryside, which is nice. I like that part too. See what things look like, get a lay of the land. Got into Birmingham, got settled into my Airbnb, which is just on the inner ring, like right across the street from basically downtown or city center, Birmingham. Went out to have dinner. Now, I did see warnings, and I alluded to it on social media about there being warnings about a heat wave coming. Dire headlines about a heat wave in Birmingham and England in general. So of course, all the temperatures were listed in Celsius. So I had to go do a quick conversion and find out how bad is it going to be? What do we need to be prepared for? So evidently it may get up to 27 degrees Celsius, which is making headlines here. So I did the conversion on Google, and that turns out to be about 80 degrees. So I think we're gonna make it. Like, I haven't taken my jacket off yet outside or inside for that matter, because it's a little chilly and it's humid, and I'm not used to either one of those things being from Phoenix. Like, I would call this like an average winter day. So we'll see how everybody holds up here in this near catastrophic conditions. I'll keep you posted. So I went out to dinner last night. Tons of great restaurants here, lots of places I'm excited to try. I went to this place called Bonehead Chicken. Everybody recommended it that I talked to. Great chicken, little place, maybe held like 20, 30 people. So I ended up sitting at the bar. The tables were all full. This was a Sunday evening. Next thing you know, a couple people sit down next to me and we start chatting, which is fun. I ordered a chicken burger. I came there for the chicken and I didn't look in the burger section, but they call them burgers. So once the bartender pointed out that the chicken sandwiches were really good for the chicken burgers, I had one of those, which is the whole point of going to the Bonehead Chicken place in the first place. But it did make me think, like, what's a sandwich then if chicken goes in a burger? I'm gonna have to do some more exploring on this topic to understand the delineation between the two. So anyway, having a drink, having a pint of beer, start talking to the people next to me. And it's funny when you're an American in a foreign country, even one that, let's call them first cousins here in Britain to us, because they can immediately spot that you're not one of them. And more specifically, they can spot that you're an American. They don't usually start off with what country you're from. They ask, what state are you from, mate? And it's always baffling to me, even when I lived in Ireland. And I lived in Ireland for a year and worked there and went to school there. And even though I bought all my clothes in Ireland, they could still spot I wasn't Irish and I was an American. And so I had a lovely conversation with them, talking about all kinds of things. Eventually, it didn't start out in this direction, but eventually it wandered to politics. A couple of questions to sound out my opinion on things. They made a couple comments and a couple questions and looked at me with an eyebrows raised, kind of feeling me out for where I might lie on the spectrum of things. And it's always funny to me being in a foreign country because, and I'll be honest, I stay up on the news pretty well. Like, I'm not a head in the sand kind of person. I pay attention to world news. I try to understand what's going on in the world. But I couldn't tell you who the Prime Minister of Britain is right now. I know who it was, but it slips through the cracks. Unless they're making a bunch of noise or making their way into the headlines, I don't know who the Prime Minister of Spain is, Italy. I know France because the guy's been around a while and he tends to make it in the news. But it's just a different perspective because the whole world knows who's in charge of America, it seems, at all times, and they have an opinion. Now, it's always interesting, the opinions, because like when I lived in Ireland back in 2000, so I went to Ireland to go to school and work in 2004. And by the time I got there, like I arrived in Ireland and I went to my university, and my first day on the university, there was a giant bonfire where they were burning George Bush in effigy because we had recently just invaded Iraq. And so it was an interesting dynamic to stroll up as an American, for this is the sentiment about things, at least outwardly, in that moment in time. And so everybody's got an opinion about us, and largely it's guided by, let's say, an incomplete story, largely incomplete story about what American politics is all about, what America is all about. The news that they get in America is just like news we get about England or France or anywhere else. It's in very small doses, and it's a very small sample set. That's just the reality of it. Same way we receive it about any of these other countries, they receive it about us. And so it has an impact on their way of thinking about us, which is sad. It'd be nice if we all had the bandwidth in order to understand each other a little better. But anyway, this is the world we live in. So they start asking a few questions, and it was fun because even though you could tell you probably wouldn't map any of the 3-4 of us who were talking on the same spot on the political spectrum, what you quickly realize is on most things, we're really probably not that far apart. And we weren't. There were a few things that were understandably upsetting to folks in England, in Birmingham, and their perspective of Donald Trump. But also, they were open to listening to perspectives about America and our situation that I could bring. The thing that was nice was that we could discuss and share ideas and not 100% agree on things, but still have a lovely time together. And it was nice. One interesting thing out of the conversation was talking about immigration, because it's a challenge here in the UK as well. And a lot of these topics we share with other countries around the world. And so we have some common understanding of, let's say, immigration, for example, and trying to balance the line between empathetic or being empathetic and still maintaining an organized structure of a country that isn't devolving into a free-for-all. There's lots of topics like that. It's one of the reasons why I'm excited to be here in the UK, is to be able to talk and understand common concerns, unique concerns, and look at different approaches or different lines of thought about things. It's one of the great things about talking to other people, and talking to other people from different parts of the world is just unique perspectives that you have to get outside of your own box to understand. Now, the other fun part is language and terminology. So I'm in Birmingham. The Brummies, they call themselves Brummies, and they've got interesting words for things. Now, I've been looking at a bunch of trucking stuff, so I've got a whole laundry list of trucking terms. I've been looking at job postings, things like that, trying to understand what are they even talking about. Trampers, and what's the other one? Trampers and fridges and tippers. There was another one I'm trying to think of. Swampers, that I have no idea what they mean. Fridge is one, I get it, guys who pull reefers. It's funny, they're complaining in some of the truck stop reviews about how the fridges aren't segregated in their own special area because it's driving people crazy when their reefer units go on and off during the night. So we've got that in common. Interesting thing that I've seen so far is that not almost, 100% of the ads that I've seen have been hourly pay for drivers. Also, kind of a correlation between an earlier topic, the idea of cabotage. They have similar situation with rules around cabotage and making sure that people follow the rules and don't wander around basically absorbing or taking work from the drivers here. They have different regulations. I've been reading up on them, but that's a topic I want to talk to people at the truck show about, get their perspective. And that's really my plan for the week. Explore around, plan to make a visit to a truck stop or two. Birmingham is a central hub, being with its location kind of in the middle of the country, seems like almost like a type of Chicago placement in the country's geography and also their transportation. So they've got a couple big truck stops around. Go up there, check it out, see what the differences are, talk to some drivers. Then, of course, on Tuesday, go into the commercial vehicle show, spend the day there talking to people, meeting people, and then taking in a little bit of history, transportation history at a couple museums here in town. Check out a soccer match on Saturday, and then head back home after my medical procedure, of course, on Wednesday. Hopefully the rest of the week will be with a lot less pain once we get that done. That's the goal. See what I can learn about UK trucking, and especially talk to people and understand the real perspectives, not the sound bites, not the news clippings, not the stuff you can get on Google from anywhere in the world, but the real. What is it really like? What are the challenges that people face? How do they relate to our challenges? And maybe we can share some good ideas and talk about how other people are working through some of these challenges that can be universal from a logistics standpoint. That's it for the money line this week. Let's drop down to line 4 for a quick break, and then we'll jump into this week's interviews. First up, Mike Ritzema, and then Moira Elliott. Then we'll see you on the flip side for the post trip. True TMS is a cloud-based transportation management system. Being in the cloud makes integrations faster, and you're able to access the platform from anywhere. They specialize in liquid transportation with their product True Liquid. It has intuitive planning,
on-demand reporting, and easy order creation, rating, and invoices, which turns tedious admin work into streamlined automated workflows. And True TMS ensures your team feels supported throughout the entire process. The folks at True TMS have decades of trucking and liquid experience, and they care about this industry. They don't just sell you a product, they're invested in your success. If you're a liquid hauler, visit their website, truetms.com, and of course, tell them Channel 19 sent you.
More than anything, this show's about bringing back the sense of community we used to find on the CB, especially good old Channel 19. No rants, no corporate spin, just long-form storytelling from someone who's been behind the wheel, built the fleet, hit rock bottom, and climbed right back up.
Welcome, everybody, back to the show. This week, and hopefully the first of many conversations, we've got the good fortune to be talking with Mike Ritzema over at Superior Trucking Payroll Service. Perfect. All right. Well, welcome, Mike. Great to have you for a discussion today. Why don't we take a minute and just introduce yourself to the audience, what your background is, and what it is your company does.
I appreciate that. Yeah, my name's Mike Ritzema. I'm the president and founder of Superior Trucking Payroll Service. We've been at this full time for 15 years, and our company is a square peg for a square hole. Payroll services just for trucking companies. We really don't do other companies other than people that we know that ask me as a personal favor. So everything we've done is built specifically for trucking. For me, it comes from a background of I was the CFO of a trucking company. They had a trucking company in a brokerage, and they weren't happy with the quality of product they were getting from their payroll service. And so I told the owner I could write them something better that would do exactly what they wanted. And we did it, and it worked. And so then we just decided to see who else could benefit from some best practices. It's been great.
Yeah, so a long time in the business leading up to starting your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was working for the trucking company for over 10 years.
Awesome. And you're up in Michigan?
I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where it's actually sunny today. We're very excited.
Nice. Well, we're hoping this is, we've got many topics that you and I've touched on in the past, but the one we wanted to focus on today was discussing 1099s. And I found a post last night that kind of played nicely and dovetails into this discussion. So I'm going to read this gentleman's post on Facebook. So I'm having a hard time deciding if I should stay with my 1099 company, making $1,800 a week, or go with a big fleet and be an employee for 47 cents per mile with benefits. What would you do? And we see 1099s popping up, go on Craigslist, go on Facebook. You've got companies offering 1099s, drivers looking for 1099 arrangements. Let's talk about 1099s. What is it?
A 1099 versus a W-2. A 1099 is what you use to pay a vendor. It's what you use to pay, your attorney who provides a service to your company, but doesn't do what your company does. And so they would get a 1099. Versus a W-2 is a document that you give to an employee, that's someone that works for you. Versus a vendor is somebody who does work for you, like does actual work things for you. There's a big difference though in between those. It's not just a thing you can elect. Oh, today I'm going to be at the 1099, or oh, I'm going to be a W-2. There's rules about all this stuff. And there's probably a reason that the company wants to pay you 1099 that is not in your favor.
Right.
Which really goes back to your original question for your guy, 47 cents a mile or $1,800 a week. At 2,500 miles, that's 1,175 versus 1,800. So it's easy for anybody in the audience to go, well, 1,800 is more, is it not? Aren't you a payroll math guy? Yes, 1,800 is more, but you don't know what you're not getting. What he's talking about with benefits too, health insurance and things like that, which yes, you can buy your own, you can go to the marketplace or go find some other place to get it. But you also have worker protections, things like workers' comp. For trucking companies, they might be listening to this, they're like, oh, workers' comp is the bane of my existence. It's expensive, right? It is. It's going to be 8, 9, 10% of your wage. So it's a significant dollar amount. But that's there because if the employee gets injured while they're working, It covers their lost wages and their medical bills, and those are going to be sizable. You know, there aren't a lot of minor truck work comp cases. Usually the truck's moving at the time. I mean, there's the occasional small one, sure, but a lot of them are catastrophic. You
Right.
know, they're the guys in the accident on the road going at a decent speed that they're full, so like 80,000 pounds going down the road. It's a lot of impact that gets crushed into that cab. And so that, you know, if you're a vendor, if you agree to be 1099, which I'm still say you can't do, but let's say you did anyway, uh, and you get in that accident and you don't have insurance, you're wrecked. You are just out of luck because you're going to be bankrupt even if you had money saved up because the hospital is going to soak you out of everything. And
Right.
the 5-figure ambulance ride. So, I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah, and when you look, I mean, you walk around an employer. I'm sure you got them up on your wall somewhere too. All the benefits of being an employee, right? All the rules, the regulations,
Mhm.
all that stuff specifically falls under the W-2 arrangement. The 1099 is not. That's, like you said, a plumber comes into your business and he works on the toilet. He's not an employee. He's just a guy who came in and did a job for a set amount of money and he walks back out, and that's the extent of the relationship. This is the significant difference. And to your point, it's you, the government lets you choose the arrangement, but that does not alter the fact that if if you are behaving like an employer can get themselves into hot water. We've seen that a number of times in big companies where, FedEx, McLean, some of these companies who have gotten tagged for trying to classify people as contractors who were in fact employees.
Well, yeah, and there's a little bit of wiggle room in some particular cases, but for the most part, it's really not. It's a choice like you're choosing to shoplift or not. Like, yes, you can make a choice to shoplift, doesn't make it legal. And so, but you kind of touched on one of the really big differences between a contractor and an employee that I think people overlook. You were talking about the plumber. So a plumber comes into my office because I paid him to put in a new sink, puts in the new sink, there's water damage and a whole bunch of stuff gets wrecked. I can go back to the plumber and say, you owe me to fix all this stuff. An employee doesn't have to bear that loss. Like literally, I could order my employee to not pour maple syrup onto their computer, and they can pour maple syrup onto their computer. All I can do is fire them. I can't make them pay me back for that because the employer bears the risk there, which is why they want to pay you 1099. Because if you accidentally clip a mailbox with your truck or hit the dock funny or whatever, all the things that happen, even
Yeah,
the ones that aren't your fault, but you can't prove aren't your fault. If you're a vendor, they can offset that, which means they can deduct it from your check, and you have no recourse really, unless your contract says you can't. Again,
sure.
I'm not an attorney, just the standard issue disclaimer, but
Hmm.
that's a big deal. With an employee, you can't do that because employees have rights.
Well, especially in trucking, right? Because things happen, right? You back into a mirror. Somebody backs into you, right? And your employer says, "Well, I'm holding I gave you a truck that had a mirror on the side of it, and you brought it back without one. I'm holding you accountable for it." I mean, you see all kinds of posts about those situations too, where, whether it's your fault or whether it's not your fault, my employer is trying to take $2,000 out of my check to cover the deductible on an accident that I was in. If you're an employee, that's not legal.
Exactly. Now, there are ways that you can kind of claw that back from an employee, but it takes doing, one of which is they agree to pay it back as a condition because you can fire them, but you can say as a condition of employment, you got to pay me back, but you still have to pay them minimum wage. There's all these things to protect an employee, which is a W-2 person. None of those exist for a 1099. So you're really out at your own peril on that. And it goes to a larger discussion, and you can stop me if you're going to go there anyway or whatever. But the company that wants to pay you 1099, what's their motivation?
Right.
Like I think that's a big deal because they're doing it for a reason. They don't want to pay payroll taxes, which by the way, that's part of it too, is the example again, 1,800 bucks a week versus the 1,200 bucks a week we were talking about. Well, on the 1,800 bucks a week, you pay both sides of the Social Security. So that's 7.65% that you're paying versus as an employee, the employer pays it. I have to pay it for all my employees, and that's just the
Right.
way it works. So on 1,800 back of the napkin math, we're talking about 500-600 bucks a week
Yeah.
that they're paying for you. So that difference is already, I mean, not 500-600 bucks. That's way too high. Uh, 50-60 bucks maybe. Okay, I'm gonna get my calculator out here. 1,800 times 0.765, 137 bucks.
Yep.
So that gap of 500 that we were talking about between the 47 cents a mile and the 1,800, a quarter of it's right there. More
Yeah,
than
and that's not including, right? So, and I don't know what the current rates are, but back when I had employees, right, for truck drivers, it's different for every type of employee, right? Your secretary in the office has a different rate on what your all-in payroll costs are going to be because your workman's comp insurance is going to be lower on people who don't get injured. We know it's higher for truck drivers because truck drivers get injured, one of the most dangerous jobs in the country, right? One of the
yeah.
most likely to get injured. So there's a reason why the insurance rate's higher is because it's probably going to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
for the work comp, you're absolutely right. I'm just talking about Social Security tax.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
was going
workers'
to go
comp is
like
on
add
top of
in.
that.
Right.
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
you look
100.
all in on a driving
Yeah.
employee, depending on what state you're in, you're north of 20% that
Yes.
the employer is paying on top of every dollar that you see on the top line of your payroll stub,
If
right?
and if they're paying a fair part of your health insurance, it's probably upwards of 30%.
Yeah, that's how we calculate it around here on the
Yep.
math, right? Just
The
when we're
burn
like,
rate
okay,
plus
what's this?
vacation days,
Yep.
things like that too. If I know not every trucking company pays holidays, but some do.
But
Um,
even now, you look, a lot of states are requiring at least sick time be accrued, right, and mandatory. So, that's a part of the cost of being a business owner now that's unavoidable.
right here in Michigan, we just started that in February.
Yep.
Um, Basically get 2 weeks a year.
Yeah, so
So
that 20-30% is what the employer who's paying you a 1099 is saving. Now, let's just call it 30%.
mhm,
30% of 1800 is 540 bucks.
exactly.
Right there's the difference of why that company wants to pay you 1099 and all of the list of benefits that you do not get. I mean, that's part of what you bear when you become an owner operator, right? An owner operator is on the 1099 side of the equation, right?
Yes.
And that's the understanding that you take. It's part of the reason why it's a little more profitable because let's face it, and I was this guy as a young man when I became an owner operator. I wasn't going to pay all those things on my own salary, and plus my net salary was going to be lower because I have deductions, depreciation, things I get to take to off lower my, let's say, my taxable
Yes.
wage that lowers that overall cost. So I'm bearing some of the risk, I'm bearing some of the cost myself in exchange for money as an owner operator. Um, as an employee, you're basically absorbing a bunch of risk and your employer's not contributing to your social security. So when you look at that annual statement social security sends out to you, or now you just go online to check it, your benefits are going to be lower for that payout when they tell you here's what you would get at 65 or 68 or 70. That number is going to be lower because you're the only one who's been contributing to it. Your employer has not. So, I mean, this is the hidden cost of going 1099 that you're going to find out the first time you do taxes after being a 1099 and not a W-2 employee.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's so much, you're in business for yourself at that point. You're running your own business, whether you're an owner operator or you're really a company driver who's choosing or whatever doing 1099 things. And I know they exist. I'm not naive. A lot of people do it, but it's not ever legal. But yeah, you're in business for yourself. So you've got to make those decisions. Like you got to know your retirement isn't going to be there if you spend your whole goal to make yourself not show income on your taxes, then you're not putting anything into your social security. So when you're 67 or whatever, ready to hang it up, usually for truck drivers is when their body fails them.
Yeah.
Um, there's nothing there for you, or
Yeah.
just that McDonald's job you have in high school before you got your CDL.
Yeah.
That's not really going to pay it. So you got to be aware of that. And I mean, that's a whole, probably we could spend a whole time talking about making sure that you're prepared for retirement as an owner operator. And I'm sure there's other people that could speak to that as well. But it's a big deal. You've got to, this isn't your kid's lemonade stand. You got to run this thing like a business if you're going to be a 1099. And
Yeah.
you got to make because you're taking on risk. So you want to see that there's reward there. And as you demonstrated with the 30%, what accountants would call burn rate on the wage, there's no reward for your $1,800 guy versus 47 cents a mile. I mean,
Yeah.
that he's neutral already.
Yeah,
So
no, we haven't even
where's the
gotten into the
reward?
health benefits or, some of the other ancillary
Yeah.
benefits that come with. I'm sure Warner offers a whole sheet of benefits, or Schneider or CR England, whoever the
And
employer is.
age discrimination protection, things like that too.
Yeah.
I'm, that's all part of being an employee, but as a vendor, you got none of that. They can cut you for any reason, anytime.
Yeah, the other thing a person has to think about, right? When you're an owner operator and you go that route, you understand that there's risks, and there's also requirements that they put on you as far as carrying your own insurance, and you may get an umbrella policy that covers any gaps in coverage that you may have. But if you're essentially a company driver, but you're going down the 1099 route, you're not thinking of yourself as a business. And so you likely don't go out and do any of those things that would protect you in a relationship now it's a company to company relationship essentially, right? Um,
100%.
and so, they have protection. They know what they're doing. They know why they asked you to do it. They're taking the risk. Um, and so, but you're kind of playing a game at a disadvantage.
Yeah. And as well, many of, not all these drivers, but many of these drivers could be younger drivers. They could be drivers in their 20s. And I can't speak for them, but I can speak for me in my 20s. I wasn't great with money.
Mm.
So if you looking at, again, at your example of the social media post, the $1,800 a week, well, those first 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to be fat and happy because I got $1,800 coming in. I'm not paying any tax. I'm not doing any estimated payments or any tax planning or anything.
Right.
I got this big old bank account. I'm going to buy a Harley. And then now I got bills coming in, and all of a sudden I do my taxes the first year, and I owe 20,000 because self-employment tax is in there and it's so big.
Yep.
Well, shoot, now I got to sell that Harley at a loss. If or just be behind on taxes my whole life and chase that down, which is just a hard way to live.
Yep.
And so yeah, you've really got to be aware of it. And the money's only part of it. It's the rest of it is the protections and the rights that you get as an employee that are law. So why would you give those away? There's plenty of trucking companies to go work for. And like this guy talked about, he's got a company can go that'll pay him 47 cents. You can go do that. They're out there. You might have to look at 3 or 4 Craigslist ads instead of one.
Yeah.
But you'll find them.
Yeah. And I'd like you to jump into around the topic of, while there are people out there right now who are going to be listening to this and they're in a 1099 situation,
Mhm.
you still have rights.
Yeah, you kind of.
Well, I mean,
Which you have rights, vendors. I mean, you have whatever's in your contract. If you're going to maintain that the vendor relationship is the relationship, it's that it is 1099. If that's not what then you have whatever's in your contract.
but I
The
mean,
only
from a
benefit,
misclassification, like if you've been
right? That's the other side
misclassified,
of it. Is
yeah, I
your
should have
other
stated
option
that
is to
better.
pursue that. You can say, look, I was supposed to be 1099. And it's really just, by the way, it's a reason why trucking companies shouldn't pay 1099 for their own benefit, because they can get beat up on this. There's a lot of ways this goes wrong. You do your taxes at the end of the year and you owe 20 grand, and your spouse just isn't having that you owe 20 grand. They're just like,
Right.
no, you need to go back. Or you fire the driver for being just a crummy driver. And they're like, no, I need unemployment. I'm going to say I'm an employee. Or any other situation like that. The employee, even if the employee came to the trucking company and said, I want to be 1099, they can still change their mind and say, I didn't know what I was saying. They get the
Yeah.
benefit of all that stuff. You're the company. You're supposed to know better. And so what a driver can do. So let's go back to that. A driver has been getting 1099, has had the epiphany, this might not be a great idea. What do I do about it? The first thing you do, talk to your trucking company, say, look, 1099 is not cool. We need this. I should be an employee. I'm driving a company truck. I'm not paying for the diesel. I'm not the one responsible if the truck drops the transmission. I'm just stuck in the middle of nowhere, but you're paying for the new transmission, all that kind of stuff. I don't get the benefit of that. I drove really speed consciously and got a lot better fuel mileage. I'm not getting the extra money for that. I don't have any of the risk. So if the trucking company says to them, yeah, go pound sand. That we agreed to a 1099. That's what you have to do. The driver can go out to the IRS. Just Google IRS form SS8. You'll see it. It's going to ask. It's about 3 pages. It's going to ask you questions like, whose equipment did you use? Who set your hours? Who controls this and that and the other thing. There's a number of questions, and it's not an all or nothing thing where they have to be all on one side of it to be one way or the other, but they'll look at kind of the majority of the day, not pure majority, but like what ones matter the most for what you do. They're
Yeah.
also going to send it then to your trucking company and say, look, Bill Smith, the driver, fill out an SSA. We need to know about what he does. So that takes time, but you can do that. You can also go right to your state. The states have very similar things, and states will act more quickly as a rule. But if the driver wants to assert they're an employee, they're probably going to get there.
Yeah, and
so
even in situations
yes,
like retroactively, like you're in an
yes,
accident or something, you back into somebody and your employer wants to say you owe us for the money for that, and
mhm,
it's not an agreement like what you talked about, or you get injured and you find out they're going to claim, yeah, we don't have work comp around here because you're a 1099. All those various scenarios, if you find yourself in those scenarios, you need to talk to the state. You need to potentially talk to an labor attorney, right, to
yes.
get this down the right track. Like because you don't forfeit your rights because of a misclassification.
You cannot waive those rights. So even if you sign a document waiving those rights, even if your contract with the trucking company says very specifically, I acknowledge I am getting 1099 and I'm a vendor and I waive all rights I would get as an employee, it doesn't matter. You can't give those away.
Yeah.
And so it does not valid. So it's more of a scare thing by the company to try and get you to not sue them. But you're gonna win. And then they're going to be in all kinds of hot water with the trucking company that you work for or worked for. You probably quit by then, but because it doesn't happen
Or they
that
got rid
next
of
day.
you.
Yeah, right. One or the other. And then, then if they get rid of you, then you've got action for that too, just by the way.
Right.
Whistleblower kind of stuff. It's not called exactly whistleblower, but there's
Yeah, like
terminology.
retaliatory firing
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something like
retaliatory
that.
terminations and things like that. Again,
Yep.
the labor attorney will take care of all that for you.
Right.
They're
Yeah, it's a big mess from an employer side, and we see big companies lose big time and big amounts of money because, they owe back taxes, they owe all the fund that the IRS tax on to the what you weren't, because all that money should have been going into the Social Security fund all along. The workman's
state
comp,
unemployment.
unemployment, all those
Yep.
funds are going to go clawing back their money plus interest plus penalties. Like the fun is just beginning
And you
for.
might even be able to assert that they were obligated to withhold money from my check and they didn't do it.
Yeah, and
And
they
so
may owe
so they
part of
may
the
be liable
taxes
for
that
that
you
as
owe.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why I always advise companies if they're company drivers, pay them W-2 because this you could have a driver with bad intentions saying I want to be 1099, get paid the 1,500, 1,600 bucks a week you were talking about, 80 grand in the year. And then they'd owe a lot of money and then go back to the employer, go back to the trucking company and say, yeah, I changed my mind. You're going to have to fix this. And
Well,
that
especially,
they're
yeah.
screwed.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, especially in an industry like you could maybe see this in some other industry, but look, we have incredibly high turnover in this industry, right?
Hmm.
Somewhere between most companies are somewhere, the best ones are around maybe 50, 60%. The worst ones are north of 100% turnover. But we have somewhere between 50 and 100% turnover easily on average, probably around 60 to
Yes.
70% overall. Now we have a job that is highly dangerous. We
Hmm.
also have a job that is that accidents happen. So like all the bad things that could happen for both sides to find out you're not in the right classification as a worker or a contractor. All those things are more likely to happen in our industry than basically any other industry in the country. And so everybody's on a path towards this doesn't end well, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of a lot of the mentality of a lot of trucking company owners anyway, is deal with the fire today and not
Mhm.
worry about tomorrow. And so we'll pay them 1099 today and save the money today and we'll deal with tomorrow when it comes, which is unfortunate because a little strategic thinking would really help them through this. It's short-term pain for long-term gain in that situation. Like you just got to be smarter than that. And on the other side too is if I'm a trucking company owner, the drivers that are coming to me saying I want to be 1099, they also have an agenda.
Yeah.
There might be a garnishment or child support or something that they don't want to pay or back taxes that they don't want to pay. Well, as soon as the other party gets wind of that, they're the ones who could force it as an employee issue. You don't know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now you've committed, now you've gone sideways with the law. I don't, it's not criminal, but it's gonna get you, you might end up eating that garnishment that they owed or that back child support because you were supposed to withhold it and you didn't, or you were supposed to pay
Yeah.
that tax bill. They had a tax levy and you didn't honor it. So, there's no winning in it really. Like, I mean, I understand why they do it in the sense of the problem today, but yeah, it's really not a winner. And so, yeah, to your guy with the social media thing, I would do the 47 cents a mile and I'd sleep better at night knowing if I got in an accident that my family's gonna not lose my wages.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think that's a huge thing because yeah, those injuries are 6, 8 months, years long,
Yeah.
right? So that for sure I would do that. But I love that they ask the questions of you. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, really great post. And I mean, you just see a lot of questions around that and around kind of when it goes sideways, like, hey, I got in an accident, but I'm a 1099, and the guy says he's just going to take the money out of my check until I pay back either the deductible or a lot of times today with the challenges that insurance is so expensive that carriers are reluctant to submit claims, and
Hmm.
so they want you to eat the whole out of pocket cost, right? Either for the damage that you caused or the damage to the truck, the company's truck that you were driving. And
Yeah.
people don't know how to what to do. And I think overall we just have there's a lot of misunderstanding about the rules and regulations around the workplace and
Mhm.
what's okay for employers, what's okay for employees. How do these relationships really work? No thanks to our government that has thousands of lines of legalese defining all this stuff that's nearly impossible to understand for a common person. But
Hmm.
there's just a lot of misunderstanding, and that creates opportunities for people to take advantage of one another.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that I mean, that's the world we live in. So, it's kind of was it caveat emptor, but let the buyer beware. Like if you're the employee, you're the buyer in that situation. Just know what you're getting into,
Yeah.
and do the work on it. And people will tell, of course, it's trucking, so there's a million stories on every direction about it. But you got to seek out the truth and what makes sense and what doesn't. Some things just aren't going to make sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the owner operator who hears, oh, so and so at this other company is getting $5 a mile to go 2,500 miles a week, and it's all,
Yeah.
one.
Downhill in both directions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's all drop trailers, and I don't have to do anything. Well, is he really? He got a $5 load going 20 miles once, and it
Yeah.
was it was live load, live unload. So come on, let's just all take a deep breath there. So just being able to find the truth out of it. Yeah, I think that you want to ask yourself, yeah, what if this if I'm a driver for a company that requires me to be 1099, I would ask myself, do I really how much do I trust this guy? Because he's gonna have to stand it. What are we gonna do if there's an accident? What guarantees do I have? What are you gonna do about all these other things? Because there's so much out there, and yeah, it's not it's just it almost never ends well. And so you either have a big tax bill or you have no social security when you go to retire.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a calculator up on the website, or even just like a breakdown side by side of some of the costs that people, I mean, I grew up the same way, right? Started, working farm jobs, cash, right? And then worked into some, working for an actual employer like a Dairy Queen or whatever, a McDonald's
Mhm.
as a teenager. But then, you know, let's face it. I mean, now you were back then you were paid with a paper check and it had a stub on it and it had a bunch of lines with a bunch of acronyms that you didn't know what the heck that meant other than like the first time you got one and you go, wait a minute, they told me the job paid $6 an hour and I worked 10 hours. Why is the check not for $60? And then you go show it to your parents and they go, yeah, that's not how it works, son.
Yep.
Welcome to the
Who's that
real
FICA
world.
guy and why'd he take all my money?
Yeah, why'd that guy get $4 this week? What
Hmm.
did he do?
Exactly. I don't remember him working. I don't remember him scooping those Dairy Queen shakes.
Yeah.
So,
So, but I mean, even today, I mean, now a lot of employees, they never even see a physical check stub. They never see it, right? It gets direct deposited. Nobody sees all the rows and line items that go into it, which is, it looks a lot like your power bill with all the random things that get taken out of there. We kind of, as Americans, we probably need to pay closer attention and make sure that we understand what's really going on here because we can get into a situation that is not what we intended. And this stuff matters, right? Your family's ability to still get a paycheck even if you get injured is a
mhm.
big deal. Like when you look at any of the statistics and the polls that come out that say like how big of an expense could you absorb if you let's say your transmission fell out of your car or you got injured at work, like how many months worth of your wages do you have saved up? And the answers are not very good. And so
being in a situation where you have no protection, or even if we talked about it, if you're misclassified, you still have rights, but your payday for those rights could be long after your bankruptcy took place.
They probably have deeper pockets than you do and can outlast you.
Yep.
Two quick things I want to circle back to. One of them is on our website at truckingpayroll.com. We have a resources tab, and right in there, there's a trucking success tools thing. There's a bunch of different tests and tools and assessments you can take. One of them is, should my drivers be 1099 or W-2? It's going to ask you about
Awesome.
7 questions. It acts as if you're talking like I'm talking to the trucking company, but a driver could answer the questions too and see if the company's treating them properly. There's a disclaimer, we're not attorneys. But yeah, like it's at least going to give you an idea. It's going to ask you 7 questions or so that you'll know the answers to. The other thing is on the check stub. Yeah, even though they're not handed out to people anymore, we still email them to everybody every week. And I think most places have it available, but a lot of people don't go look at them.
Yep.
So I think they're just not, it's not in their physical hands. But
Yeah.
even whether it's us or somebody else, I don't want to imply that we're the only ones that give out pay stubs, because I pretty much, I think you have to. I think it's law.
Yeah,
in a
you
lot of
have to
places.
allow
But
there has
but
to
I
be
can't.
access.
Yeah, but I don't have to. But I can't make you look at it
Yeah.
and understand it. And we always want to make paychecks easy to understand, because that's important, that the transparency between the company and the driver. But yeah, and your other thing too, you talked about how much you have saved up. 77% of people in the country live paycheck to paycheck, meaning you miss one paycheck and the whole system breaks down.
Yeah.
And if you're in a driver and you get hurt and you don't have that coverage, even forgetting about the medical bill that's going to bankrupt you anyway, yeah, you're going to lose your house too. I remember me talking to an owner operator years ago who didn't get occupational accident insurance, which is like owner operator work comp, and for the self-employed, and he didn't get it, and he slipped getting out of his truck. I lost his truck because he like tore his Achilles or something like that, where he couldn't drive for 6 or 8 months, but he still had truck payments. He was a legit owner operator, but he couldn't do it. He had to sell his truck just to try and get out of it. So yeah, you're running a business now. You're playing with the adult table.
Yep, for sure. Well, I think the other thing too you made me think of there was the other kind of common post you see in social media is, hey, I'm going to quit this job and I'm a 1099, but they
Mhm.
basically threaten me that they're going to withhold, or I'm worried they're going to withhold that last paycheck over some reason, almost like when you're, at the end of your lease for an apartment, right? But once
Yes.
again, you're not an employee. Well, I mean, you're misclassified, but they're treating you as if you're a contractor, and you're not really. But
Yeah,
there's just a lot of
you could still
situations.
and you could sue them as a vendor because you perform the work and try and get them that way, and they would know that it could go into this other thing. But to those people, first of all, those people who have to write those posts, that sucks. Like, that's just a bad day. But you're working for a company you don't trust, and you shouldn't have to do that. There are plenty of other trucking companies. You should not have to work for a company you don't trust. That is the gap that is always going to be there for you, even if you're choosing to still reward this guy who you don't trust by continuing to work there. Man, yeah, you got to get out of there. The $800 you're going to miss out on because he does you dirty. Worst case, you don't ever get it back, right? But
Yeah.
that's a small price to pay. I know it's a lot. $800 is a lot of money, but you got to get away from that guy today. That's a bad relationship, and you don't trust him. Like, I don't trust he's going to pay me. They almost explicitly say it.
Yep.
You run away. Don't walk away from those guys.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mike, awesome conversation, a wealth of information. So glad to meet you and bring your knowledge to the audience, and more so in the future. So really appreciate your time today, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds great. Awesome. Anytime I can be helped, please reach out.
It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Welcome back, everybody. This week we've got a very special guest. No relation, but we do share almost the same last name. Moira Elliott joins us today. 2 T's on her name. She got the fancy version. I got the discount version. We didn't have enough coins in our pocket when we got to Ellis Island, so we only got 1 T. But welcome, Moira. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here on Soft White Underbelly. Oh no, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wrong one. Just kidding. Just kidding. Cut that out. Just kidding.
Uh, well, so Mara, you and I kind of got connected on Facebook
Yeah.
and just started chatting back and forth.
Mhm.
And one of the things that came up was the fact that you've been in this business a year or two, right? You've
Yeah.
got a few miles under your belt. So tell us how did you get started in trucking?
Well, I didn't mean to. I didn't start out that way. I grew up with an older brother and sister that left the house. Um, Basically, they're 13 and 15 years older than me. And I grew up with my mom and dad, who were a little bit older. My dad had retired from the Air Force in 58, and I was born in 62. So I got to enjoy retirement with them. So they took me on vacation everywhere, every summer, every winter, every spring break, we were going somewhere. So
Mhm.
we'd go in the camper and travel and so forth and so on. So I got to grow up doing that, which was really cool. And I got to fly with my dad because he was a private pilot. We lived at the end of the runway of Flaybob Airport in Riverside, California. So I grew up, had a pretty good time. And as I got older and got into high school, I started to get a little rambunctious. And after high school, didn't make such great decisions. I had wanted to be an artist, and I've worked in advertising and silkscreen and design and all kinds of different stuff. But I got off track in my early 20s and stayed off track for about 10 years or so until um, my father passed away in 94. My mom had passed away in 86. And by the time my dad passed away in 94, I had really gotten off track and my life was very messy and I had to make a decision. So, officer of the law suggested that I check into counseling for my messiness, and so I said, "Okay, I'll do it." So at that point, I hadn't pursued my art career and kind of stalled that. So I needed another vocation. And during this counseling session, they offered a grant for learning how to do a new vocation. So
Mhm.
here I am, I think it's 1995, and I'm in the county office and I'm just kind of leafing through this folder and for these new careers or career training. And um, so it was like accountant, and I was like, ugh. Ugh. And then it was like accounts receivable, accounts payable. And no offense to anybody that loves this stuff. I just got to tell you that because you are rock stars. If during this interview I ever say I can't stand doing something, it's because all of you people that are doing it are just superstars. That's how I feel about it. So page after page in alphabetical order, it was like medical biller. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this stuff. And I was raised pretty much only child. And I liked, just kind of doing my own thing and stuff. So alphabetized, very last page, I flip it and it said truck driver. And I went, huh, truck driver? That sounds interesting. I get to be by myself. It also has accountability because you have to be accountable.
Yeah,
Uh,
get from A to B.
get from A to B, take certain tests when they want you to take certain tests
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, and then I was like, and I like to move. I like to move. I like to be in motion. So, and then the other thing was that you could do it in 4 weeks. And I was like, no way. You could do this in 4 weeks? That's totally, I can't even believe you would have that level of responsibility in 4 weeks. So at the time I worked I got a part-time job. After my dad passed away, I got some money, I got a car, and I knew that I didn't have any more chances. So that's another reason why I wanted to get myself straightened out. So not that I ever asked my dad for any money or anything, I never did, but I did. That was just like a marker in my life,
Right.
a marker to get things settled, get them straightened out. So I worked at the warehouse, which is a record and tape store record. That shows you how old I am. So every Tuesday when the new movies would come out on a videotape, there'd be line out into the parking lot, people standing in line to get the latest movie in 1995.
Right.
And
Yeah.
here I am, in my 30s. I was 32, I think, when I got my my truck driver's license and stuff. And so I'm like the oldest person at the warehouse. It's so funny. And when they hired me, they asked me if I would have any problem taking instruction from people younger than me. I was like, good grief, I'm 32. I'm not dead, but I figured if they knew more than I did, then of course they're in charge. So, but anyhow, so got myself going over to truck driver school, United States Truck Driving School. And that was kind of interesting because I was the only girl in the class. And I'll
Sure.
probably refer to myself as a girl throughout this interview. So just bear with it. So I was the only girl in the class. I had no idea what I was doing. I really never took a second look at a truck in my life. Nobody in my family did it. My dad loved to build things. He'd rebuild cars, stuff like that, very mechanical. But as far as that, mm-mm. So I got a grant too. So it was a grant, so I didn't have to pay it back. And that was important because once I did graduate, the CRSTs and the Knights and the Swifts and all those big companies are lurking about trying to get you to sign up so they can take care of your tuition and stuff like that. So I didn't have
Yeah.
to do that.
So you're a
So
free agent.
I was a free agent. I didn't
Nice.
know how important that would be. And so that was in Rialto. And so I got myself going over there, and it was kind of funny because this old guy, he was old then, he's probably dead now, was teaching the class, and he had been a truck driver forever, and he was all gritty, and he had that truck driver sense of humor. And so one of the first truck driverisms I ever remember hearing was, well, if y'all want to make some money, you better keep that left door closed. And I was like, left door? Why is he talking about the left door? Shouldn't he just say the door? And then as I started to hang around more truckers, I
Yeah.
realized that that was like just part of the way they talk. And
Right.
then I started to do it too, Tony. So, United States Truck Driving School was cool because A, it was driving trucks, and B, it was totally different for me. So the classroom was packed. And so we were just told to not try to understand what was being taught to us, just memorize the answers so we could get our permit so we could go drive the truck. So for the first 2 weeks, we just drilled on these tests. And that was back when we had the paper tests. And so we had copies of the paper tests and we just drilled on them. And I decided that if I was going to do this, I was going to get all the endorsements. So I went for the whole thing. And
Mhm.
I got you know what they are, the doubles and triples, the tanker, the hazmat,
Yeah.
air brakes, the whole thing. So I studied for all of them. And I passed. So I got the permit and I got to drive the truck. And um, I remembered on the hazmat test, I just took mental pictures of the hazmat codes, and I would think about it would be 11.12, not the one that's 111.1. So I just had to train myself to take these mental pictures of everything. So I did that, and that was yay. So then we got to get in the trucks. So first day of truck driving, it's the instructor in the passenger seat, and then there's 5 of us stuffed in the truck. And
Really?
it, yeah, yeah, 5 of us stuffed in the truck. And so it's an 8-hour day. So you figure it took an hour to get started, an hour at the end of the day, basically. So all of us maybe had a little bit of 45 minutes to drive.
Sure.
And we spent 1 week learning how to go forward and 1 week learning how to go backward. And all it was the test.
Yeah.
So,
So you
And
just did the test circuit or something similar to the test circuit over and over again?
yep, that was it. And I come to find out that our instructor had his CDL suspended, so that's why he was teaching.
And why he couldn't take you out on the roads?
Right. So he was always in the passenger seat. And then one day he just got kind of fed up at all of us like putting around trying to back in and stuff like that. And he told the kid to get out of the seat because get out of the seat. And he did like a total like alley dock from a standing stop from sitting still. He just did that whole just backed it right in there with no just almost just it was amazing. It was like, all right, so he does know what he's doing. So anyway, so double clutch city, man, just doing it. I think it was an 8-speed. I think it was a raggedy old. I have a picture of it. I'll send it to you
Yeah.
if you want to put it maybe on the. I don't know if you want to put it on the Facebook or whatever, but I could find it. My graduation picture was a raggedy old International, I think it was, and they didn't teach you anything at all other than just to pass the test. So I'm all like freaked out about the backing, it's like I
Mhm.
can't really do it, can't really do it. I know it's all geometry and I'm all, it's just geometry, don't worry about it. But you didn't take geometry. So, oh my gosh, what are you gonna do, Mara? What are you gonna do? So it came to the road test part. And we did that. I think I the failed it because I let it go to neutral. I wasn't in control. So I
Mm.
think I failed that first attempt, but got the second attempt, did the pre-trip. I was kind of worried about that because there's a lot of stuff on this truck that I didn't know what it was. So I had to try and memorize that. And and I did that. And then the backing, I did succeed. So I
Great.
did it. I did it. I did it. I did it in 4 weeks. And at the school, they had a bulletin board where they had job availability. And so I had heard about the whole Knight and Swift and CRST vibe, where if you signed up, you kind of signed your life away.
Mhm.
That's what I was hearing, signing your life away, and then you'd have to be with another person for like weeks at a time
Yep.
with no escape.
Mm.
And so I was not interested in that. So I answered a couple of ads for independent drivers and still had like no clue what I was doing. And so the first one that I answered, I went for a road test and he was super nice. And he took me out to like a vacant warehouse that had a bunch of docks on it. But I had programmed myself so much during school that when he said back it into 13, I did it just like I was doing it at the test. Even though I had all this real estate all over the place, I had acres to just do it. I just did it like I was programmed and I failed. I said, how about 13 and a half? Can I put it in 13 and a half? And he was looking at me like I was nuts. And I didn't, it's one of those kind of things you don't realize till a couple of years later. He was like, oh, that's why he was looking at me that way. Okay, I got it. So I didn't get that job. But then I answered another ad and it was for an independent driver. And so it was with a guy who had 2 trucks and he had a route with Pacific Bell and had a contract with them to go from City of Commerce to Fresno and back 5 nights a week. And I was I liked that idea. I thought that was pretty cool. And plus it was $100 a night. That was a lot of money. That was a
Yeah.
lot of money in 95 for me anyway. So
Mhm.
and I didn't have to go with anybody or anything. So I went and applied for the job and I wanted to dress for the job I wanted. So I remember I had some cowboy shoes and they were pretty popular in the late 80s, early 90s. And so it's like, cowboy boots that you slip on shoes. So I wore
Yeah.
those, and I wore some jeans, and I, kind of looked a little, Western-y-ish and stuff. And the guy that was advertising the job, he was kind of a cowboy. So I think that kind of helped me. And he was younger than me, and he had this truck, and he had a brand new Mac, a little red Mac with a single stack and a window in the back.
There you go.
So
You're halfway to a trucking song already.
I am. I'm halfway trucking song. So he liked me, I liked him, and I got the job. So I still didn't know anything. I didn't know anything, Tony, at all. And so he said, "Okay, I'll run with you one night up there, and I'll show you what to do." And I have no idea what John thought that we got taught at school, because we didn't know one single thing other than what I just told you.
Yeah.
So I'm double clutching the heck out of the track, and we're driving from Ontario to City of Commerce, and so we get the trailer. It's already preloaded. And for some reason, I'm pretty good with geography, but I got Bakersfield and Fresno mixed up. So I thought that this was going to be a super cake run, because I thought Fresno was Bakersfield. And
Yeah.
then when we got over the hill and started passing Bakersfield, I'm going, wait a minute. Are we supposed to be getting off here soon? I say to myself. Then I see the sign that says Fresno 150 miles or something like that. Like, what? So we just go up there and go to this little warehouse, and it's the same kind of backing as at the DMV. So I did really good there.
Perfect.
And then we went back and did that round that night, and I got to listen to the CB and listen to people talk and everything. That was kind of interesting. And then I didn't really feel confident, so I said, "John, can you go with me tomorrow night too?" And he was like, "Oh, really? Okay." So we went the next night, and we got up to Fresno, and I go to get out of the truck, and I forget I'm in a truck. And I got out, and I fell flat on my face. I just dropped like a rock. And I can still remember looking up, and him being outside the truck looking down at me like, "What happened?" And I'm like, "I'm cool. I'm cool. I'm cool. Everything's fine. Everything's fine." I had the biggest bruise on my leg and everything. So so that was how I got started with that job, and that was kind of the beginning of how it all got started. So every night I'd come over the hill down the grapevine, and I started a little bit talking on the CB. I'd be like, "Break 19 for radio check." And they'd be like, "Sounds good, driver." And the first time they called me driver, I was like, "Driver,
I'm in the club.
I'm in the club. I'm in the club." And then I blow it by saying, "Hey, we got over there in that tip trailer." And that was the leasing company all those years ago.
Yeah.
And then there's this long silence, and then I hear, "Which one?" And I'm all, "Oh, that was stupid. Oh, shun. So it's all nighttime. It all happens at night. And like you mentioned the other day, the freaks come out at night. So it was all night driving, and all it was just hearing voices, in the night coming across the radio. And I remember this one guy, I always liked him. He would come down off the hill, and he would have big radio, and uh, he would say, I got you down here. I got you. How's that? How's everybody doing down here? Hey, Snapper. Hey, Red Snapper. How you doing?" There was another girl. She ran a milk truck, and they'd say, "Hey, King Snake. Hey, King Snake. I got your ears on." Big, giant radio. And he would say, "I'm on this Twinkie wagon. I'm driving this Twinkie wagon. Everybody, come on out. How's everybody doing tonight?" And all this kind of stuff. So I thought he drove for Willig, because Willig was a company that ran up and down the Central Valley, and they had 2 yellow trailers. So when he called it a Twinkie wagon, I thought the trailers represented Twinkies. But no, he drove for Hostess. And so
So it wasn't a metaphor. He
No.
actually had Twinkies.
He did. And that was when they had the Twinkie lights. So he would call out and say, hey, oh, and I forgot to tell you how I got my handle. Oh my gosh, that was so fun. Can I tell you? Do you
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me.
So when I was going to these classes that I had to go to, I had a counselor, and she and I ended up being good friends and ended up being friends after I left there. And like I said, I got off track. I wasn't, like in a horrible, horrible state of being. I was just I just got down the wrong road. So she says, "You don't even seem like you should be here." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that." But she and I got to be close friends, and I was telling her that I was going to truck driving school and stuff like that, and she was pretty interested in it. And she said, "So what's your handle?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, I don't know if it's like a nickname. People are supposed to give it to you, or if you make it up yourself. I don't know. So I told her what kind of truck I drove and driving the Mac. And she said, "Well, how about Mad Maxine?" And I said, "That sounds kind of cool." So Crap Shooter would come down the hill and he'd be like, "How about that Maxine? How about that Maxine? I got some Twinkie lights. You want some Twinkie lights tonight?" And we would meet and he would give me a box of Twinkies. But anyway, so yeah, there was I think about back then just not even knowing anything, and um just that being the first job. And then I met somebody because I thought I could make good decisions. And I met somebody during that period and ended up in a relationship and got married, and trucking career continued. When we were drove for Landstar, and we did that was my first over the road experience with Landstar. So that was many, many years ago. So when my husband and I came back out only a few years ago, different husband, I upgraded big time. Uh, we would go across the country and we'd see these places that I had seen 20, 25 years before. And some of it was really wonderful, to see those things again. And then some of it was kind of sad to see deterioration and
Yeah.
how some of them have been purposefully, defaced and stuff like that. But yeah, so from there we did Landstar, and then we did sand and gravel for a long time, and have some funny stories there too. And then I did a roll off. I used to do double roll offs. I could put two 40-yard boxes on one trailer. I don't even know what kind of trailer that was called, but I did that. And I drove truck and transfer out of the quarries. That was really fun because I had a truck that had deep reduction on it. So I would drop the box and they'd send me up the hill on these dirt roads because my truck could go there, and I'd scout out what was up there and see if we could get up there and do our jobs. And then I also did oversized load. I did like, gosh, 120-foot long pilings from Paris, California down to the port. And I had pilot cars in the front and in the back. And those things weighed probably, I don't know, 80,000 pounds just themselves. And here's little old me ratcheting them down like that's going to help if something happens. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, I get there and they'd all be loose. It's by the grace of God, they're all just sitting on there still. And the pilot cars they weren't, they were kind of half there. I think all the people at this job were kind of doing some extracurricular activities while working. Not me though. I was like, ah. But yeah, we do 2 of those a day. Oh, and they had the extended chassis, the
Yeah.
chassis that would pull apart. I don't know. You probably know what that's called. And
No, I've seen them, but I know what you're talking about. But
yeah, it would have that, and then the piling would lay on top of it, and then the pole would stick way out behind the cab. And I was driving a cab over at the time, and so you'd have to watch your turns because you could impale something very
sure.
easily. And then you had to watch your tail because you could just, do a lot of damage
Yeah.
back there. But yeah, I got funny stories for everything. And some of them are about me. And then now, right now, Tony and I, my husband's name is Tony as well. We're doing air freight. So we really like that. We're with a really nice company right now. We're not super truckers like you guys, you and your brother, little brother trucker. in the industry for so long, you know, and putting engines in and taking engines out. Most of the time I've just been a hired to drive and use my talents that I've um, kind of honed over the years and common sense that I typically like to use. So we drive for a contractor right now who's on with the air freight company, and we really enjoy it. So
Yeah, running all over the country.
running all over the country, yeah, yeah. And then we did a little Amazon a few years ago with a contractor, and that's got its own stories too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It seems like that should be, the plain vanilla job of the industry.
it's not. It should
No?
be, but it's not. No,
Well,
no.
what makes it spicy?
What, Amazon?
Yeah.
The curry. No. Um, well, Amazon is it's its own beast in a way because it's not a trucking company. They specialize in just getting, you know, packages from one place to another. Just with the trucks, it's just a bigger van. And so you know, from a driver's point of view, they're not a trucking company. They don't care about us. You can only spend 15 minutes on the property after you get the trailer. You're only allowed 2 hours on the property prior to your arrival. Um, you get the good thing about it is you get a block. The contractor, because we drove for a contractor, um, they bid on blocks, and from what I understand, it's a blind bid. They don't know where the blocks are, and a block would be the starting point, and then the drops goes back to the starting point. So it makes it like a circle, but they call it a block. And so they don't know what the pricing is, who's bidding what, so forth and so on. So that's part of the reason why people are saying that the pricing has gotten so low. And we couldn't stay with that contractor because he couldn't afford to run his own truck, let alone pay us to run a truck for them. So that's how we ended up looking for other work and ended up over here at Air Freight, which is a blessing. But Amazon's like all into outsourcing. So if you need help during the day, you can call and get somebody stateside. But if you need help at night, you're going to be talking to somebody from India.
Hmm.
And they're going to be telling you how to do your job here in the US.
That they've never
And
seen.
that they've never seen. Also, you know, things change at Amazon a lot. So you come on and things might be a certain way and then it might change and you don't necessarily know it. One of the things that we had to deal with when we first started was even though we are like 8 hours ahead of schedule and we're moving an empty trailer, and if we stop at a rest area or something for half an hour, they'll call us and ask us what we're doing.
Really?
Every time they'll
Oh
call
my
us.
goodness.
Every time. And we use an app, and the app has navigation on it. So that was kind of nice, you know. But sometimes it wasn't accurate, and one of us got a ticket for being on a restricted area after leaving a hub. And the Amazon hubs just seem to be rising out of the earth everywhere
Right.
with
Yeah.
in pastures, you know. I would feel sorry for these folks that had bought homes in these rural areas and lovely homes or quaint homes, and then all of a sudden there's coming up out of the ground is a big bright Amazon you know, warehouse.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, it would make me feel bad. And I'd always drive very conservatively through those neighborhoods because, you know, I would want that for me too. But I'd see some
Yeah.
drivers going through with empties, just bam, 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 you know, just anyway, teach their own. But yeah, Amazon was funny. I have a funny Amazon story. So this is my favorite one, by the way. This shows you how they're not a trucking company. So we had to go to Ontario, California, and find a trailer. So we got our job, and it was to go from Ontario to Harrisburg, PA. So that's some good miles, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we go to Ontario, and then they say it's in a satellite yard, and so that's with EFI or some other company that they do overflow with. So we try to talk to the person at the gate who's probably from a temp agency and tell them that we're trying to find this trailer, which we don't have a trailer number to. They don't give the trailer numbers out. And there's some security things going on because, it's important. Security is important. So,
Yeah.
so we have to find it based on, like the Where's Waldo method or something like that. So we're driving through this satellite yard and then they say, oh no, it's over in this other satellite yard and it's at night. So an hour and a half, we're looking for this trailer. We cannot find it. So we call India because it's nighttime and we tell them we can't find this trailer. And so since the block has been already been contracted, their end is they have to fulfill it no matter what. So we're going to be doing that. So India said, okay, go ahead and get an empty and take it to Harrisburg, PA. So I'm like, okay. So that's better on fuel for our contractor, stuff like that.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, that's fine. We could fly up the hills and do all kinds of stuff. We don't have a governed truck. We could do whatever we want. We're just like tippity doo dah. Oh, and by the way, this is all for entertainment purposes and whatever else you say, right, Tony?
Yes.
Yeah.
These things probably never happened.
Probably never happened. Yes. Yes. I mean, you believe everything on the internet, right? So we get to Harrisburg, right? And we hadn't gotten any other information about what we're supposed to do next because it was kind of weird. It was kind of a weird run. So we didn't have another destination. So because of that whole, debacle back there. So I call in and I said, hey, we're here and we got the empty. And so what do you want us to do? And so there was like a long pause, maybe a callback or something like that. So they said, okay, I can't remember if it was the domestic dispatch or India, but they told us, go ahead and grab an empty and go back to Ontario. And so I said, okay, all paid miles. And so I go to the guard shack and I said, hey, I'm supposed to pick up an empty. And she said, what? The only one we have is the one you brought. So I said, okay. So I went and hooked back up to it and drove back to Ontario.
Good Lord. I can only imagine how many hundreds of times that goes on in a week.
Right. Yeah, perhaps, so that's to me that there was other little things and stuff like that, like sometimes, it happens, trailers won't be ready. So then you have to fulfill. So go ahead and grab an empty and go, over here and over there and stuff like that. But yeah, it was different. It was a little different, but we did 5,000, 6,000 miles in 5 days and had a couple days off. And that was a really great rotation. And so that part was really, really good. We always got paid and, we had good equipment. So it's just all those little, idiosyncrasies like, what, a 5,000 mile empty trailer move. So,
Well, I mean, the law averages, right? When you do that many movements, it's kind of like, when people snap a picture of a Swift truck in the ditch or whatever, right? It's like, well, they
yeah,
got, between them and Knight, they got 40,000 of them. Like things are going to happen, right? At a scale
right.
that's kind of unimaginable when you're thinking about a 50 truck or even a 500 truck company. Like it's just 100 times larger. Like the
Yeah.
numbers catch up with you. Like, and even like, so for a while, and this is where I met my wife, we were both dispatchers at Transport America. Um, Blue trucks back in the day. Um, and they, I mean, 2,000 trucks, right? Like the volume of moronic things that went on a daily basis
Right.
would just stagger your mind. You're like, how can this just be like, we just had this happen a day ago? Like, how? Like, what are
Right.
the odds we're dealing with it again? It's like, well, we got 2,000 people running around. Like, stuff's bound to happen. Like, some of them are going to be crazy. Some of them are going to make bad choices. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, and then you got guys on YouTube making compilation, you know, videos of, just like incident after incident after incident. And I can't watch too many of those because I think it's a detriment to our industry in a sense. It just
yeah.
kind of just lumps everything together. I'd rather get out and help somebody back in than watch somebody do a bad job. So
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
I
And I
feel
mean,
about it.
the part that gets left out is they also have, Swift, JB Hunt, Werner,
Hmm.
Crete. Like they have thousands, tens of thousands of
Yep.
amazing drivers, right?
Yeah.
World-class drivers. You go and look at, and part of it's, you know, skewed a little bit, but like they just had the Arizona Truck Driving Championships here. I was looking
Hmm.
at the results from I think up in Wyoming or Idaho Truck Driving Championship. I mean, a lot of times the guys who win these and gals who
Hmm.
win these contests, they come out of the big fleets, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, they're amazing. You look at like some of the posts of 3 million, 4 million, 5 million accident-free miles that come out of some of these big
Yeah.
fleets, and you're just like, how is that even possible? Like, it just doesn't make sense that, and hats off to them for doing it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Those truck rodeos are pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't
No.
do most like 90% of the stuff that they do. Like, it hurts my brain just
Yeah.
watching it.
Like I was at truck rodeo in Pomona years and years ago, and they had the car hauler competition. Some guy cut a corner and jumped down, and he turned his ankle,
Mm.
and he limped the rest of the way through it. And I'm like, oh no, that's a big giant safety thing right there, buddy, and you didn't win. Ah! But yeah, for sure, these guys that they can back these doubles and triples up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I drove doubles for a long time. I drove bottom dump. And then when I was driving the transfer, truck and transfer, it's a dump truck on the front, and then we have a drawbar with a box in the back that transfers into the dump truck part. It has a turntable on it. So it pivots at the pintle hook and then also on the turntable on the front axles for the trailer. So it has two pivot points right there. And some of these guys could back those things up and just are
Wait,
you
I'm gonna
imag
have to Google
are
this.
you
I'm like, what
imagining
what
it?
is this thing? Like, I've never heard of this thing.
So it's a dump truck in front. It's
Yeah.
like
And you got
like
a
one
pup in the back?
and a pup on a drawbar.
Yeah.
So there's on the back of the dump truck, there's a pintle hook, you pop the
Yeah.
drawbars shaped like a
Yeah.
triangle. You pop
Yeah.
that on, but then there's what did I just call it? The front axle on the box turns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
that turns. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that you can
Okay.
make tight turns. You can make tight turns, but it's
Gotcha.
not
Gotcha.
it's not easy to back up. And
No, I couldn't. No.
these guys could do that. So I was just, you
I
know,
remember trying to back up a hay rack as a kid, two hay racks with a tractor, and that's where you can like literally look and see everything that's going on. And
Mhm.
like after about 3 attempts, my stepdad was like, "Get out of there! Like we're gonna
Right.
be here for a month."
Yeah.
And that was my one shot at it, and I've never tried again.
Yeah, I remember listening to you talking about when your first job that episode and how the farmer you were just like hoping the farmer didn't watch you go down the road.
Yep.
You're going at 5 miles an hour. That also kind of happened to me a little bit of one time. It reminded me of our church in Norco that we used to go to on Horse Week. It's a huge deal. Horse Week is like one of the biggest deals in horsemanship, big rodeo and stuff like that. So our church would always put a flatbed trailer together and and go with the theme and stuff like that. Well, one year the truck couldn't make it. The truck to pull the flatbed, and we'd been working on this float for like 2 weeks and everything. So one of our church members, Hank, he was up at the rodeo and he was telling so and so about it. Oh, the driver backed out. Now we got the trailer, and some cowboy heard him, and he goes, "What? Y'all need a truck? I got a truck." So, and Hank says, "Hey, we got a driver," and he points at me, and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, we got a driver." He goes, and the guy says, "It's right over there. It's the blue and white one." He tosses me the keys. I don't know if you really talk like that, but it's just fun. He tosses me the key, and I'm like, I caught it. And then I look over, and it's like a 500-year-old Peterbilt cab over. And I was like, okay, I could do this. I could do this. And I jump in, and it's got either one stick shift with something other one coming out of it, or it had 2.
Yeah.
And I was like, too prideful to go say, which one do I use? And I'm looking all over the place for the diagram. Of course, there isn't one, right?
Right.
No diagram. You don't
Not
need the
anymore.
diagrams. No, not in those days. You either drove it or you didn't.
Yep.
So I got it in gear, and it's the same gear I had the whole time I drove it. The whole time. I think it was second. I don't know. So I creeped down the street and hooked it up, clink, clink, and stuff. And then I'm starting to pull the trailer, and it's like a 3-mile parade, and then you have to go around the back in the side streets, and I'm watching the temperature gauges, and I'm going, oh my gosh, is this thing gonna overheat? It looks like it's getting really hot. I'm freaking myself out a little bit. I'm like, it's getting hot, it's getting hot, it's getting hot. It never moved. But I'm going, oh, I bet it's getting a little hot. It's getting hot. I know it's getting hot. And I'm just chugging along. Finally the parade's over, and I'm like, I gotta get out of here. So I peel off. I'm like making hand signals, like going over here. So I peel off and go around the corner and safely make it back to the staging area. I was so glad that was over. Just say, I don't even know how I got it to move, but I was one of those like, don't watch me. Just don't watch me. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing.
Right. I'm being extra cautious, not,
Yes.
I'm
There are,
not lost.
there's people involved. Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
So
So, yeah,
what keeps you guys doing it? What do you like most about still doing it?
my friends that don't do it wonder too. They want to know why. Well, it was along this with my husband. It was his kind of his dream for a number of years. We've been married 16 years now, that we would do this together. So I already had my license, and he got his in 2006, and he got his cut his teeth with a friend of his on FedEx. So he was doing FedEx over the road he got hired on by a contractor who's still our friend to this day. He's just such an awesome guy, Sasha. And so he went over the road with Sasha and some of Sasha's contractors and stuff. But our marriage just really hadn't gotten to a place where of peacefulness, where the idea of spending 24/7 time together like this, it took a few years for it to get there. And so when that happened, Tony called Sasha and said, Sasha, Mara says she wants to drive with me. I'm so excited. And he said, great, I just bought a truck. Why don't you go drive with me in Amazon? So that's how we got started doing that. But I took 8 years off when I turned 50. So there was something in me that I was just kind of like, I don't know, being a 50-year-old truck driver lady didn't sound too great at the time. And I wanted to spend some time working my other business. And also, I started an art business too, teaching art to groups. So some people call it painting parties, but I call it
Yeah,
art
fun.
lessons. Yeah.
I've done
So
a couple of those, yeah.
oh, have you? What did
Yeah.
you do?
I did an owl. It's no longer here, but I was kind of proud of it. Um, yeah, I did an owl. Yeah, what kind of what did the sipping,
Yeah.
sipping, yeah, one of those type deals. I went with my team. One of my team members, when I had my consulting team, he decided we'd do that as like a team building activity. So we all went and drank wine and painted together.
Okay.
Five. I was the
Yeah.
young one of the bunch. They were all older than me, so probably like a 60-year-old, a 55-year-old, a 50-year-old, and then I was probably 35 at the time, and we're all in this art thing, drinking wine and cracking jokes. And they're trucking guys through and through,
Okay.
so, and a
All
couple
right.
ex-army guys. So I mean, we were the goofballs of the bunch,
It sounds like
but we had a
probably.
good time.
Yeah. It's fun. I taught it. I just came back from a cruise to the Caribbean, and the other company that I'm with, we have a convention every year on a cruise ship. And so I got to teach painting party there. So that was fun. So I got
Cool,
to
yeah.
teach like 20 people. So yeah, so I wanted to develop that a little bit more. So you know, I am a CDL holder for 30 years, but I did take a few years off. But then my husband and I decided to go trucking. So we went trucking, and we both have pretty strong personalities, so it was kind of fun at first. But yeah, he loves it. He's so mechanically inclined, and so he's just super amazing. So this time with him has been very, very special. So, and we've been out here doing this together for about, I think we're going to be going on our 5th year. So we take our little dog with us, and we had another dog. Unfortunately, she went missing while we were at our orientation for the job we currently have, and she's been missing ever since, and it's broken our hearts. But a friend of ours gifted us another companion, so we have little Texie with us, and she's good to have in the truck. So that's pretty much why I keep doing it. Actually, I'm good at it. So if you're good at something, you know, and most of the jobs that I have gotten, most of the positions have been word of mouth. I after taking the 8 years off, you know, even that job getting with Sasha and doing the Amazon, that was word of mouth too, because Tony and I were looking for other companies to be with before we even had that conversation. And because I had been out of the truck for that long, nobody wanted to hire me.
Yeah, it's weird business that way.
And they were saying that my husband could be my instructor and all this other stuff. And, you know, but it was just by the grace of God that Sasha said, "Oh, yeah, I just bought a truck. Let's go." So,
Yeah, I mean, all the drastic changes in the industry that have gone on right over those 8 years that
yes.
we're worried you haven't kept up with.
Yeah, like where did these automatic transmissions come from? I was like, what? There's a what? And you know, I mean, one of the first jobs I had, it was doing and I drove an end dump, which I inadvertently laid over. That's another story. But
That'll
when I
happen.
got it will inevitably, and it happened in the first 3 weeks of that job. So we got that out of the way right away. And then when I decided I didn't want to be an end dump driver anymore, and the lady that owned the company, she was on the phone with me. She's like, "How's the tractor?" I said, "Tractor's great." She said, "Oh, good." I said, "I'm not really cut out for this." And she said, "Don't leave. Don't leave." She thought I was leaving the industry. She's like, "Don't leave. We got to show those guys. We got to show them." I really gave her a lot of credit for doing that. You know, that was really nice.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the industry I was not in love with. It was that aspect of it. I was like, "Nah, it's okay. I'll find something a little closer to the ground." But
Yeah.
anyway, now I rabbit trailed and I forgot what I was going to say. So it happens.
Well,
Hi.
I've been hung up because I've been imagining now ever since you talked about your art classes, like,
Hmm.
10 truck drivers with easels in the Love's parking lot, looking at a sunset, overlooking, some Freightliners and Peterbilts. Like I'm waiting for the advertisement to come popping out, and we will be at the Shawnee, Oklahoma Loves, and
I know, I know. No, wait. I'll just set up in one of those like caution taped off fuel islands. I'll just set up there, you
yeah,
know, and
just
we'll
pull right through the pump, get your
just
fuel,
pull right
pull
through
ahead,
yeah, put
pop
the
the
cone
buttons,
out.
and throw out
Yeah.
the easels and just
Yeah.
get started right
That's
there.
right. That's right. That's right. I take Venmo, I take Zelle, I take cash,
Loves
I take
points,
yeah,
petrol
calm
points.
down. Just give it to me, you
That's
know?
right.
Yeah, I could do that. Now you're starting to spark something. What would we paint? Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if you pick one truck brand, you're just going to start a fight and you're going to lose part of your market because, the Kenworth guys aren't going to paint internationals. And
Nobody's painting a Volvo.
yeah, no, I don't think so. Nobody's taking that one home and slapping it on the wall.
I want to know where we're going to get those European ones over here. I want to drive one of those big old Scanias or whatever.
Scanias, yeah.
Yeah.
There was some at the truck show. Somebody's using them over here. I've seen photos that are in America there. But yeah, that's one of the things I'm doing when I get over to England. There's a big truck show. So the day before my procedure, there's the UK's biggest truck shows going on in Birmingham. So that's what
That's cool.
I know, I'm excited. And I've already got some conversations lined up with some truck drivers, one retired truck driver that I'm meeting up with. So I'm going to get I've already been like looking at the job postings to find all the funny words that I don't know what they mean by,
Oh, be
you know,
careful.
like in the job descriptions, it'll say things like, we're looking for a class 1 tramper. And I'm like, a what? Um,
Yeah. Or a
so there,
lorry for the lorry.
yeah, there's all kinds of words and stuff that I don't know what they're talking about. So it'll be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's neat. I can't wait to see pics of that and hear all about it. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
So jelly. So jelly.
Well, awesome, Mara. It's been so wonderful to talk to you, and I'm sure
Cool.
we'll catch up again and get some more stories, but I will let you guys go to bed and we'll talk to you soon.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I'm super excited for your platform. Super excited for this whole thing you got going on here. I mean, I've the episodes that I've been listening to, I've just really enjoyed, and I actually was behind an articulated dump truck the other day and took a picture of it, so I'll send it to you. So,
That'll
but
make
anyway,
Gary happy down there in Florida.
it'll make Gary happy. But yeah, this has just been so neat. It's like things are coming alive, and for me, being out here for 30 years and coming into it from absolutely nothing. I mean, the first guy I worked for, he's like, we had to take the truck over to New Holland because there's a crack in the frame. Have you been running with the bags down? And I'm all like, bags?
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? I was totally like, what does he think they teach us in this school? And then it started snowing one night. I know I'm rabbit trailing, but I'm having fun. Sorry, you can cut it out if you need to. Um, uh, Coming over the grapevine, California gets all crazy when it snows in the grapevine. It's like a half an inch of snow, and it's like they shut it all down and everything. So there's snow, and Red Snapper, the milk truck driver, she's going, put in your put in your inner axle differential, flip your switches, all this other stuff. Cause I had a three axle day cab. And I'm all, I don't see a button for that. And then I pull over and she comes over and she looks and she goes, you don't have a button. You just got a tag axle. And I'm all, oh, what does that mean? Okay. But, just weird
Yeah, you
stuff
got to
like that.
find your own little safe spaces too to ask the questions, right? And that's part of the
Yeah,
reason for the podcast. It's like fire like there's no stupid question. Like, I mean, it's part of why I started off just telling the stories of like, listen, I
sure.
spent most of my career not knowing what I was doing, and we worked up from there. So like, don't feel embarrassed or
No.
strange that you're in the same boat. Like they'll just wing you out there and hope you know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Like the kid the other day that came over to my truck and he locked himself out at the truck stop and
Yep.
he's like, "Can I use your key?" I said, "How long you been driving?" He said, "4 months." And I said, "Absolutely, you can use my key." I said, "And this is probably not the first time this is going to happen."
Right.
So anyway,
Yeah.
so thank you
I mean,
so
they
much,
should teach you
Tony.
when they hire you, right? That should be like part of orientation, which is how to break into your own truck after you lock yourself out.
I got more stories, but maybe another time.
All right, Mara. Take care. Have a good night. Say hi to the other Tony Elliott for me, and we'll catch up with you soon.
God bless you. Thank
You
you.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We're talking trucking life uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories, and the miles in between. From first jobs to last hauls, the laughs that kept us going, and the lessons that left a mark.
Welcome to the post trip. I saw some really wonderful words of encouragement following last week's episode, my interview with Raheem. I really love talking to people who are giving their all, trying to make a life in this business. We all know how hard it is to make it in this business. And I'll reference back to a song I discussed earlier, a few podcast episodes ago, called The Faint of Heart. Like, this business is not for the faint of heart. And so I appreciate those encouraging words coming in. It's one of the things I focus on social media, trying to be an encouraging word to anybody, anywhere we can, who's really trying their hardest to hustle and make a life for themselves in trucking. And speaking of Shane Britt, be sure to check out his page and his album. Faint of Heart isn't the only great song he's got on there. Check out the Feathersons and their new adventures. If you're a woman on the road, she's ramped up some of her new project around enabling women entrepreneurs, wifepreneurs. So check out her pages. I know a lot of people in this day and age have side gigs going on from the truck, and she's got some interesting programs to assist and help you grow those and be a positive impact for you in your growth as not just a truck driver, but overall an entrepreneur. Shout out to I-95 truckers, Al. I've been working on a new version of my website to enable me to do some of the things like the trucking etiquette project and encouragement cards. So Al has been gracious enough to grant me a little bit of usage of his amazing photographs that he takes out on I-95. I can't wait to get more of your work up there, Al, and appreciate that a great deal. Check out Big Cal's Trucking Kitchen. Big Cal made it home last weekend. Hope you had a good weekend, Cal. MJ Love Johnson's out and about, making lots of posts as well of her adventures. Check out Chris Barber, Cindy in Iraq, and all the other guests that we've had here on the program. Be sure to keep reaching out if you'd like to be on the program. Message us on social media. Email us at inbox@channel19experience.com. There's also a contact form on the website, and keep sharing the show with your friends. I'm going to try to do some extra things on social media this week from the UK, so be on the lookout for those. I've been slowly ramping up TikTok. I know, the Chinese are capturing all of our data, but let's be real. They probably had all the data anyways. So join us on TikTok if you're on that platform. Don't forget the encouragement cards. Keep placing your orders for those. They'll be heading out your way shortly for those who've already placed orders. And especially keep sharing your ideas for new encouragement cards. Normal ones, funny ones, sassy ones, friends only ones. And keep sending in your suggestions for trucking etiquette on social media or message us any way you can. We're going to cover a lot of topics in depth and see if we can outline what the standards are for trucking etiquette. On the next episode, it's going to be full British invasion time. By then, I should have a bunch of fun information to share. If you have any thoughts or questions for our UK trucker brothers and sisters, send them my way. As always, like, follow, subscribe, heart, 5-star, give us your feedback. Thanks for listening. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. We'll see y'all next week. We've got work to do.
This has been the Channel 19 Experience. If it's about trucking, we're talking about it. All uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories. But we talk about the world of trucking today, too. Everything from legislation to lane changes in the industry. We got it covered. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back at the ranch soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on social media at Channel 19 Experience and the website at www.channel19experience.com. That's channel and the numbers 19. See you down the road.